Hi folks, hope you're doing well. Yeah. I watched that movie the other day, Paul the Apostle of Christ. There was a lot of things in it that were, one thing in it was quite ridiculous. Jim Caviezel was playing the part of Luke. Now for a moment or two I was thinking it must be a different Luke. It can't be the same Luke, because at one point they're arguing about the fact some of them want to go and attack the Romans, and the leader basically says, we're supposed to do things as Christ did. And then someone said, who here has walked with Christ? Who here knows how Christ will react to that? And Luke comes up and says, none of us have walked with Christ. Not you, not me, not Paul. And I was thinking, excuse me, you wrote the third gospel. If you wrote the third gospel, you must have been walking with Christ. But, okay, not great. That wasn't clever. But, yeah, okay. Yeah, they missed that bit. Or maybe I misunderstood that bit, I don't know. But that's how I understood what they were doing. So, yeah, that was a bit weird. Anyway, one thing in it that, was quite awful is that it showed the barbaric nature of the times. And the fact that things were so incredibly bad at that point in time that the Christian church in Rome was very much thinking about abandoning Rome. Just getting out. Because it was that bad. Well, yeah. But then you go back to the fact that, some people in church seems to think it'd be a good idea if we could go back to doing things the way that the early church did. Yeah. No, I mean, as I say, in that movie, just seeing that bit where I think Luke was in prison for a short while because he'd been talking to Paul, and he was in prison with all these different people, and one gentleman said, do you know what's going to happen? And Luke said, there'll be games tomorrow. And people started crying, and Luke said, don't worry, there'll be one slash of the claws and you're dead, but you'll be with the Lord. But then the next picture is horrendous, or a few minutes long, where you see the games and you see a mother, father, and small daughter being led out to the Romans. Led out to the lions, Led out to the lions. For the lions to tear them to pieces. And people think it'd be great if we can live in those days. Yeah, where you could be even in your own homes and you could hear the screaming of the women, the men and the children as they're being torn apart by lions. Great! And these are the people you went to church with. Fantastic, isn't it, eh? Brilliant, yeah. What about, you get dragged from church kicking and screaming, and you get put on top of a stand and set on fire? What about that? You get used as a torch. To light the night for people. And again, your screaming can be heard for miles. No? But what about you just get killed normally, or you just get hung, but your body gets left there for weeks? So as people walk past, they can see that. You want to go back to those days? Okay, let's come back to another level. You want to go back to days when there's no central heating? Yeah, where the beds aren't as comfortable. Yeah, where we don't have double glazing. You want to go back to those days? You're an idiot. But yeah, when I was seeing that movie, I was thinking, really, today, cannot imagine in any way, shape or form what it would be to live in times like that. But we know they happened. We know that those sort of times, barbaric times happened. We know in British history, they did the hung, drawn and quartered to some people. Horrendous. Horrendous. Yeah. Well, we know that the guillotine was used to behead people. We know that we've had kings and queens, certainly of the UK, beheaded. And there were crowds of people cheering. I mean, look at how far we've come. What a horrendous thing to be in those days. To see that. To have people encouraging you to go to the... Oh, we've got a beheading. Oh, yeah, there's a beheading. There'll be a massive crowd. We can come and see this queen. She's got her head chopped off. We can see her head roll down and the blood will spurt out. We can see as her life leaves her body. Great. No, sod it. No. No, thank you. Don't want it. No. No. No, that's horrible. Come on, I've been in churches where they've asked for people to pray for those in China who are imprisoned. I mean, for goodness sake, they're only imprisoned. They might be abused in the prisons, quite possibly. But compared to what was going on, thousands of years ago, no, nowhere near. The barbaric nature of people in China is nowhere near the barbaric nature of the Romans. No. So thankful those days are gone. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that was bad. Really bad. And so, should we want anything like that? No. Absolutely not. No, of course not. That would be insanity. We've got to figure out how to be as effective as they were without all that nastiness. Because that must be possible. With God, that must be possible. Yeah. I think it is. I think it's just a case of we need to understand. We need to understand what he's done for us. And once we understand what he's done for us, we will be just as charged as they were. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there was a video I've started watching, ended it within a matter of seconds. The usual crap. It was, I don't know who they were, these two, I've seen them before. They're well known as atheists who go talking about the Bible and saying that they don't believe it. And they were talking about the film The Passion and saying that this wouldn't happen because there's no way that a Roman principal would execute an innocent person because the crowd wanted it. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's complete nonsense. They were saying, but they know that the Romans in charge at that time were strong and that they wouldn't do that. No, sorry. History is written by those who won. Always the case. History is always written by those who won. Of course, those people in that position at that point in time are going to try and write their history as being that they were great, that they were lovely, and all that, and that they were powerful, they were strong. Yeah, they're not going to want to be shown as weak, and that they were pushed over by them. history doesn't write honesty. We don't get honesty in history. We get the version that the winners want us to read and want us to believe. That's the way history is written. It's the way it's always been written. So, yeah. The fact that there may be historical texts point out that this man was a strong man, it means nothing at all. It doesn't mean he was strong, certainly. It just means that they wanted to portray him as that. So, yeah. But yeah, well, were they vicious, the Romans? Yeah, of course. Of course. It was an incredibly barbaric time. And so, yeah. Yeah. They wanted to rule, and the problem is that they were always in situations where, because, like I suppose, the British, where they invaded countries. You invade people. Initially, people are going to be well behaved because of the fact you've just beat the crap out of their armies. And you've got all the power. You've got the pointy spears and swords and all that crap. Eventually they're going to start getting a bit peed off. They're going to start to resist. And when they start to resist, you've got to get more nasty as a way of saying, I'm in power. Anyone who questions my power, they're going to be answerable in this. I'm going to do this. And the more they resist, the more extreme your nastiness has to be. And so in the end, if you've been doing this for centuries, as a people, you get to get incredibly nasty, incredibly vicious straight away because you want to stamp on any resistance very, very quickly. So you want to send out an incredibly strong message very, very quickly that resistance is futile, as Borg would say. And yeah. So what we see in things like Poor Apostle of Christ would be quite likely to be what things would have been like. Yes. Yeah. Well, what we see in the Passion about how the Lord was beaten and bashed and abused, how the soldiers were so incredibly abusive. Well, of course, they were beating up not just a Jew, but someone who was hated by Jews. So Jews are lower than them. Well, someone who's hated by the Jews is someone who's basically, the most pathetic, hated, worthless, useless piece of shit you could ever come across to the Romans. But because if they view Jews as worthless pieces of crap, then obviously, someone who is the Jews want to kill and crucify is going to be what? So many levels below that. And so, that nature of abusing, again, well, because if you are whipping people, that's hard work. That is hard work. That's why what we saw with the Americans, with the way they were dealing with, was it Iraqis or was it Afghanistan? I think it's probably Afghanistan, or in between the two, probably. Taking photos of them posing with prisoners and, treating prisoners in a way that was just disgusting, really. But that's the point. Doing that sort of work is hard work. So naturally, when you're doing that sort of work, you want to enjoy yourself doing it. Because otherwise, it's just bloody hard work. Mentally, emotionally, physically. And you're not getting paid that much for it. So you want to enjoy it. And so, And of course, from the people who are running it, who cares? If the soldiers are enjoying it, fine. You're Rome anyway. It's like the Americans doing it. yeah, the people in charge didn't care that they were doing it until photographs got out. It's only once evidence got out that people started to care about it, right? People in charge were bothered about it once there was photographic evidence out in the main. They didn't care about it before. That's why it kept going. Yeah, when you've got people in that situation, soldiers, dealing with incredibly difficult stuff. Well, because if you are a soldier and you are beating people, and your job is to beat people, that's a really awful, terrible job to do. You're going to go to bed at night. But the more you can devalue and dehumanize that person, the less you're going to have nightmares about it. We see that perfectly with the way they dealt with Yeshua, don't we? Yeah. But as I say, do we want to go back to those days? No. 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 I think they did quite well in that movie, the way that they portrayed the horror. Yeah, poor apostle of Christ. The way they portrayed the horror of what they were witnessing. They did a good job. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It is a good film. Yeah. But, yeah. No. Seeing that was just, yeah. No, thank you. I'm quite thankful of the time I've been born in. Yeah. I wouldn't have fancied being there. That was bad. Really bad. I mean, we can think sometimes that our life is bad. No. Anyway, there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Be a blessing. Be blessed. Bye-bye.